Hello, this video shows you how to do basic right angle weave. I'm using size 8 seed beads here for a better visibility. Maybe for the first try, it's a good bead size to take. Now we string 4 beads. We make a ring by passing back through the first bead and then through all the beads again. So you see I have this kind of overlap in my ring, and I can pull the beads tight and hold them close together. You see the right angle weave stitch has its name not from the position of the beads, but from the thread path. So from bead to bead we go in a right angle to the next bead. So your bead is the side of the square, not the corner. This is something that we should make clear in the beginning, because this often the eye makes the bead to become the corner, but the bead is actually the side of your square, or the edge of your square. Now, to make the next unit, we string 3 beads and we pass back through the bead where we're exiting from. So 2 adjacent right angle weave units share 1 bead. Then I'm weaving forward the following bead and 1 more bead. And you see from bead to bead, I always go around in a right angle to the next position. And I'm exiting in the opposite position where I started this unit, because I want to make a strip of right angle weave units. Now, you see this one unit was going counterclockwise, so the next unit is going clockwise. Always hold the thread tight between your fingers so that you're not losing your thread tension here. And you see this unit goes in clockwise direction. This is always alternating from unit to unit. And again, I'm exiting from the second new bead to make my next unit. Again, I string 3 beads. And I'm exiting from my second new bead to proceed the strip from here. One last unit. And you see here, especially where I'm using size 8 beads, because they are big, the bead holes are big. So everything has the tendency to be rather loose. That's why I always hold my thread under tension. But also there's an issue with right angle weave that you can see here right away. There's always on one side double thread and on the other side single thread in your beads, due to the fact that we're always weaving another time through the half of the circle to get to our new starting position. So you see here is double thread, and on the other side is single thread. And always there where the single thread is, the beads are a little bit looser, they're not nicely connected. So kind of in a zigzag line, our structure is looking a little bit wonky. What we can do, and I want to show you this right away from the beginning, when you come to the end of the row, you're just zigzagging along the grid, as I show you here, back to the starting point, which doubles up your thread on either side. So you double up the thread on the sides, where so far there was only single thread. I recommend to do this from the beginning because it makes your right angle weave grid look way neater, and it makes it in this way easier to identify the position of the beads, and things are not looking so wonky. So now I came back to my starting point. I exit from the side position because I want to make my next row of right angle weave beads. Right angle weave units. So we see I'm exiting from the right hand side here, and I make another unit stringing 3 beads. I pass back through the bead that I was exiting from. The first unit of the second row is exactly like the previous units that we made. Now I have to exit from the next bead here and to make my next unit. And now you see here we already have 2 beads of the new unit, so I only have to string 2 new beads. There we need to add the bead on the right and the bead on the bottom, and the bead on the left and on the top are already there. So a string 2 beads go through the bead on the left and then on the bead of at the top, and then I weave forward to the position where I want to proceed. So I'm going down and again to the left, going down and to the left, where I'm starting my next unit. Now you see the left bead is, again, the left bead is already there, the top bead is already there, but this time we go counterclockwise. So instead of adding a bead in the first place, I will pass into the left bead here, which is already there. The bead is shared with the neighbor unit here. So I go into that bead, I string my 2 missing beads, the bottom and the right bead, and then I pass through the top bead and back again through the left bead of my actual unit, and I exit from the bottom bead going to the right. This time I'm going clockwise, so I string my 2 beads, I weave up through the left hand bead, go left to right through the top bead, and the right bead and the bottom bead are the new beads again, snuggling up. And we repeat this again. Next unit is going counterclockwise again. So I'm going through the top bead here, that's my starting bead. I forward through the left hand bead, that's already there. Exit here, string my 2 missing beads. And then I pass back through the top bead and the left hand bead, and I can just take that in one stitch. Once you are familiar with the stitch, you don't have to exit from every bead single just to see where you are. In the beginning, it's maybe easier, but after a while, you will just pass through several beads or through 2 beads at a time. You should never do more than 2 beads in a time in a right angle wave grid. So you see, I'm zigzagging back through this row as well, and you will see here how this is neatening up the stitch. You see that right away, how this wonky row suddenly looks like a nice, neat right angle weave grid. And I'm exiting in the top position to start my next row. Now we make one more row, a little bit more speedy just to practice. And again, I string my 3 beads for the first unit. Then you forward into the bead at the bottom position, weave forward to the left hand bead here. This is a counterclockwise beading direction that we have here. Add the 2 beads, and you see here I'm passing through the 2 beads here, through the top bead and the left bead at once. Then I forward into my bottom bead here, string my 2 beads, weave up to the left hand bead and to the top bead at once. Pull it tight. And then I'm going down through the right hand bead, through the top bead and the left hand bead of the next unit. Add the bottom bead and the right bead of this unit, going through the top and the left hand bead at once. Then I forward into the bottom bead here of that position. And you see how passing through the 2 beads at once is speeding the stitch a little bit up. See, I'm going through the left hand and through the top bead, this time going clockwise. And again, reinforce this row, so I'm passing back through the beads of the last unit, and then I'm zigzagging all the way up to neaten up this row. And also here, you see when you know where your way is going along, you can just speed this up a little bit by going through several beads at once. It's not always working, only when they volunteer, only when the beads volunteer, otherwise just exit with your needle in between two beads. And you see a nice, neat grid of right angle wave units. Now the next thing that I want to show you is how to zip two parts of a right angle wave structure, because that's also easy to make. So you have these two little patches here, and I will use a second color for the zipping process. And you see in this, when you zip two pieces, then your left and right hand beads are already existing. So here I'm adding the top bead and the bottom bead, and I'm including the left hand and the right hand bead into this unit. Now I will proceed from the bottom bead, of course. And you see here, when I was zipping, in the first position, I only added 2 beads. Now in the following positions, I always will just add the bottom bead as a new bead. The other beads are already there. So I'm waving forward from the bottom bead of that first unit into the left hand bead. I'm going counterclockwise in this unit. I string my new bead, and now I'm going to pick up the beads here because that's getting too weird doing that on the beading mat. So I add my bottom bead, pass through the right hand bead, through the top bead, through the left hand bead, getting back to the bottom bead. Then I forward into the right hand bead, string the bottom bead, and weave up through the left hand bead, weave through the top bead, and exit from the bottom bead. And from there, I go into the left hand bead. So you see that you're just making your way around, and it's like little 8 turns that you're doing. So when you draw a number 8, you also go clockwise in the one loop and counterclockwise in the other loop, and that's the exact same that you're doing here. So it's like an endless number 8 units that you're doing here. Okay. And we get to the last position, and also here in this zipping unit, you can zigzag your way back to the start to neaten and to stabilize the structure here, especially when you do that with bigger beads. If you would make this grid with size 15 beads, for example, there might be not enough space in the beads to always zigzag back, depending on what you're planning to do with your grid later on. So, but for the bigger beads, it's definitely something that you should do. And here you will see, especially with these yellow beads, you will see the effect of weaving back, and you also see where the loose tension is. Don't make complicated turns down there. You just proceed in your number 8, endless number 8 turns that you're doing here. You just proceed in that way and just zigzag your way back to the starting point to double up the threads. And you see how this little bit wonky line of yellow beads in the center suddenly becomes a straight line of beads here in the middle. That's the effect that you have with this reinforcing part. Now the last thing that I want to show you is a big don't. See here, I'm poking my needle into the grid, going straight ahead. That's something that you should never do when you're doing right angle weave stitches. So you see, you will never forward from one bead to the next in a straight line. If you do so, you will see that I just hold that against the mat. You see the thread is visible. And this is an absolute don't in right angle weave. So always go in a right angle to the next bead and you're fine. Thank you very much for your attention. See you next time. Bye-bye.